Greetings, everybody, and welcome along once again to the Carrera Cup of Brazil and the Porsche Challenge. I'm so excited for the second round of this 2025 campaign to continue 2 weeks after the opening round at Velocitta. We are back on the circuit once again. We had plenty of excitement last time out with a lot of exciting battles on the circuit that certainly gave us plenty to get enthused about, with the championship really starting to take shape in those first couple of races of the season. Now we're back for a second go on the same circuit. We're into time qualifying, and it's obviously the fight for pole position. 2 weeks ago, we had a sensational run for pole. It was Marcel Muller who grabbed the pole position in the Carrera Cup, along with Leonardo Herrmann, who got the job done in the Sprint Challenge. It looks as though we're going to have a fairly decent time of it in terms of weather as well. Bright sunny skies, and we're straight in with the Carrera Cup. We've started off with the rookie category, as we always tend to do. And as always, it's the fight for the drivers that run in the top 10 at the end of the three classes. We start with Carrera Rookie, then go to Carrera into the Carrera Overall Cup. So leading challenge once again, which has changed in the last 2 weekends. It's still going to be a fight for the victory. It's still going to be an incredibly close battle. We had some drama 2 weeks ago with punctures galore. Hopefully the teams will have done their homework to try and combat those. But in terms of the climate, it's not exactly any different to what it was last time. Temperatures are going to be fairly, and it's the same surface with the same cars with the same compound of Michelin tyres. So it could be a very intriguing day at the office for sure. So starting off the ball rolling, it is Paulo Sousa, who has topped the times for the moment with a 1:38.3, but straight in there coming with a 1:32.2. So now we're starting to get up to speed in this first of our three qualifying sessions that lead to the 10 shootout. Then, of course, we'll get to do it all over again in the Sprint Challenge for Rookie Sport, then the Sprint Challenge, and then, of course, we'll have the top 10 shootout. So the drivers getting... There is Perez, the Gordon Ramsay of Brazilian television. Excellent competitor as he is as a racing driver as well. And there is the 15 who has gone to the top spot, Leandro Sanchez. Now on a 1:30.78. So you can see that the lap times are starting to tumble. Drivers really starting to find their feet now out here on the course at Velocitta, as the fight for pole position kicks off in earnest here. Leonardo Sanchez in front of Edu Guedes and Marco Pisani, then Flavio Champao, Bruno Campos, Vanio Pontes, Paulo Sousa and Silvio Morestoni. 8 drivers in the hunt for the victory in the rookie category. It was a very competitive race battle last time out, and we saw some fantastic performers in the last time out, obviously competing in the challenges that we had across the 2 races. Amazing results come through. It was Silvio Morestoni that came through to take the victory in the first run of it. Miguel Paludo getting the Carrera Cup victory, and of course, and then Carrera Sport was won by Nelson Marcondes with a very different battle in the Sprint Challenge. We'll get to that in a short while, but of course, by getting the job done the way he did, Miguel Paludo became the most successful driver in the history of the Porsche Cup Brasil. And now we're going to get to see how it can over the course of the second weekend. The driver of the weekend last time out, though, the man who scored 50 points in the championship and put himself firmly at the top of the standings, well, that was Christian Hahn, who now has a 5-point lead in the championship over Matias Camparato, the Brazil F4 champion from last year. So consistent over the 2 races, just 5 points back from the leader. Miguel Paludo has 44, Lucas Salas has 41, from Nelson Marcondes on 31, and Seba Malucelli on 29. That's in the Porsche Carrera Cup start things. In Sprint Challenge, it's Carlos Chavez that carries an 11-point lead into this weekend, as Leonardo Herrmann finds himself tied on points with Matheus Roque. They're 2 ahead of Sleg Leiter, who is 5 ahead of who is just 2 ahead of Cecilia Rebelo. So we're going to see another interesting challenge this weekend. The competitors are really starting to find their feet on the course. Bruno Campos, the first driver of the weekend to duck under 1:30 in qualifying, 1:29.8. He sets the benchmark and for everyone to follow. And there are a few drivers already pushing to that. Edu Guedes has gone purple in Sector 1. There he is, trying to find a little bit of pace. 25.095, pretty close to purple in Sector 2. So if you can finish off the 3rd sector and clean and tidy up the lap, then Edu Guedes could go top in Carrera Rookie. having a fantastic run as he comes off the straight and down the main passing point now. Can he get to the top spot? It's second. It's just a few hundredths of a second away from Bruno Campos's mark of 129.405 for Campos, 129.424 for Edu Guedes, who misses out on rookie pole by 19 thousandths of a second. Marco third from Leonardo Sanchez. There is the number 11 of Flavio Chapao, who hasn't really got himself up to speed yet. He's got a time of a 1:31.3, but I think he can do a bit better than that. Coming off the turn, he's gone personal best in Sector 1, personal best in Sector 2. Where is Flavio Chapao to finish up at the end of this lap? Well, he had a bit of a difficult final sector, but he's managed to get a 1:31.066, which admittedly is better than done before, but I think he would have wanted a little bit more from the car than that. So he's not too far away from Vanya Pontes as the leopard print, number 12 of Marco Pisani. That is the colour scheme. Has changed since round one, as we see Marco Pisani pushing just that little bit extra over the line. That's the point where Everton Cardoso had that monstrous accident in qualifying 2 weeks ago and went viral for all the wrong reasons on social media as well, but fortunately he's okay. Just a little chance to see if Marco Pisani can find something. He was fastest of all in Sector 1, 26.334, but 25.3 in Sector 2. So is there going to be enough in the tank to bring him to the top spot? He has to find a quarter of a second across the first and third sectors because he's lost a bit of time in the second. Here is Marco Pisani, currently running in fourth because he's been displaced by Leonardo Sanchez. Can he go top spot? Marco Pisani, 1:29.662. So nearly able to go faster still, but he just can't quite get there. And so Marco Pisani slips to fifth position because up third comes Silvio Modestoni. Silvio Modestoni goes 1:29.45. So that puts him into third position as we watch Bruno Campos trying to find that little bit extra from the car. 1:29.350, which is the fastest lap time anybody has produced so far. Fastest of all in Sector 1, though, is Marco Pisani. Fastest of all in Sector 2, though, is Silvio Modestoni. So Campos has been able to knit a perfect ladder from these sectors. So it's now whether or not he can finish the job in the third sector and find that little bit extra. 1 minute to go in the session. It's not like he has to find much to finish the job. He's only 74 thousandths of a second quicker. Edu Guedes, because he did make an improvement on the last lap, but only by about hundredths of a second. Trying to find that tidy exit. These corners with their very varying ranges of radius and dynamics. Over the line, and Bruno Campos does a 1:29.624. It's not an improvement, so he remains in pole with a 1:29.350. I don't think you're going to get anybody pushing the limit there. Edu Guedes has already boxed, so decided not to go for another lap. Marco Pisani is trying to tidy up his lap. He's gone purple in Sector 1 at 26.33, 25.5 in the second sector. So this could be an improvement up from fifth position. What can Marco Pisani do? And it's the third sector that is his weak spot. 9.3. He doesn't finish the lap the way he wanted to. Final chances across the line. A couple more drivers trying to get last little bit from their cars. And a big bank slapper into turn one for Silvio Stoney, trying to find second place. But he's not going to get there. Just 1/10 of a second away from Bruno Campos' pace at the front end. As we now watch Bruno Campos finishing the job. He just did a 26.73 for the first sector. That's still pretty quick. And a 25.1 for the second sector. So he's still on a fairly decent pace here. A little bit extra from the car. Third sector, a 37.414. That's the fastest sector of anybody. But I just don't see anybody getting that pace. Although Marco Pisani has done 26.33 in the first sector, 26.6 in the second. It's all gone wrong for him in that second sector. So Pisani's sure going to bail out of the lap now. As the rest of the field, with time down to 0, there's not going to be a chance to place Bruno Campos. He goes across the line, finishes his fun. His last lap time was a 1:29.5. Oh, and a spin there from Silvio Modestoni as he tried to find that little bit extra in the car. So with time having clocked down to 0, Silvio Modestoni really did try to find that little bit extra. And he was just going to be denied then. So big shame for Silvio Modestoni. Let's see what happened. That's where Everton Cardoso lost it 2 weeks ago. A lot of curb. The back have had enough. And it gets around. Sure for Silvio Modestone. That's what happens when you take too much curb in a Porsche Carrera Cup car. So a big slide there from Silvio Modestone. His chance of pole position in Recon, but he did get a time of a 1:29.450. He get the engine running, so he's able to get back to the pits, and that shouldn't delay us getting started with the pass. So Bruno Campos at 1:29.350. That might be enough to keep him in the top 10. It's marginal, but he might just find himself in the top 10 there. I'm not sure if Edu Guedes is going to quite make it, but he's perfectly happy with being second place. Certainly a big improvement on what we saw from him a fortnight ago. So he can be very happy with what's happened, but it's all styles at the Campos camp, as Bruno Campos has opened the proceedings then in Carrera Rookie with the provisional pole position. The time to beat then, 1:29.350 from the Porto 33 car. Bruno Campos ahead of Edu Guedes and Silvio Modestone. Then Leonardo Sanchez, Marco Pisani, Souza, Vanya Pontes and Champao. It's 1.7 seconds that covers the entirety of the field in no problems at all then for the man on top, Bruno Campos, delivering. And so he begins our Carrera Rookie pole position charge with a time of a 1:29.35 that might just be good enough. The top 10 overall when the musical chairs have stopped moving. So there is the result after the rookie run. Bruno Campos, 74 thousandths of a second quicker than Edu Guedes. Silvio Modestone in front of Leonardo Sanchez, then Marco Pisani, Paulo Souza, Vanya Pontes, and Flavio Champao. That is the group for rookie. Next up will be Carrera Sport. It's going to be a really intriguing battle to see how many of the sport drivers manage to get through. There's not a massive amount of contenders in the Carrera Cup itself this year. So it's basically a case of how many sport and how many rookie drivers can make it through to that top 10. Somebody is very happy indeed, though. Bruno Camp, number one of the rookies, and that sets him up for a really exciting weekend here at Velocitta. Not easy to deliver when your backs are against the wall and you've got so much pressure rolling on your shoulders. But this weekend, Bruno Campos has clearly done his homework from last time out and been able to put another stellar performance. So, of course, in Carrera Rookie, last time out, the victories went the way of Silvio Modestone and Daniel Newman in the rookie categories for Carrera and Challenge. But a really exciting battle. It was Leonardo Sanchez that won the first race of the weekend. And then, of course, the second race won by Modestone. So for Bruno Campos to come fresh out of the blocks and put it in pole position is a very good sign indeed from him. Because it was a rookie pole last time for him as well. But now to give himself the best possible chance of holding on to it. Now it's time to see if Miguel Mariotti can make it to Carrera Sport pole positions in a row, having got the job done last time out 2 weeks ago on the very same circuit. Now it's time to see if he can put in another stellar performance here for the second round of the championship. But Bruno Campos is very happy. 2 pole positions from 2 weekends. No worries at all for the number 33. So a very solid start indeed for the man who has raced in Porsche Brazil since 2020. He won the endurance crown in rookie last year. So he's up to try and go for a title in the sprint races. A very important step in Bruno Campos' development, of course. Really wants to make this work in his favour. And Guedes and Silvio Modestone out of pole position. Very positive start to his weekend. So considering that last time out, the rookie victories, as we mentioned before, went the way of Leonardo Sanchez and Silvio Modestone. Sanchez is P4, Modestone is P3, and Edu Guedes managed to put himself in P2. So considering he's one of the masters in this particular category as well, it's a very solid start to proceedings for Edu Guedes. But Bruno Campos just seems to find something sweet on this Velocitta circuit. Definitely putting him into a good position long term. So he could be very happy with the way things have started off. You can certainly be very positive about the opening gambit here. Of course, the next challenge now comes from the competitors in Carrera Sport category. The drivers waiting at the end of the pit lane to see who is going to get the pole position. The race wins last time went the way of the very impressive Linu Perez and then Nelson Marcondes across the two races last time out. But the pole position last time out went the way of Miguel Mariotti. So let's see who's going to get the job done this time. Three different men at the top end of the three most significant sessions of the weekend. Qualifying race 1 and race 2. Now out onto the circuit go the sport drivers. Rumian Zimkiewicz, Marco Billi, Miguel Mariotti, Israel Salmen, Nelson Marcondes, Nelson Monteiro, Gustavo Janon, and Christian Moore making their way out onto the circuit. Need to compare so far once again in sport. I think there's a few more drivers still to venture their way out onto the circuit. Indeed, there is. Marcos Regadas leaving the pit lane now, as to are Rodrigo Melo and Linu Perez. I did sing Linu Perez for the moment. There is Ruman Zimkiewicz leading the field out. Also going onto the circuit, Yosemar Junior, who last year, of course, famously ran the Ayrton Senna helmet colours on his car, but has gone back to his more traditional colour scheme in 2025. Why did he run it last year? Because, of course, last year was the 30th anniversary of the tragic passing of every Brazilian racing driver's hero, Ayrton Senna da Silva. So going into 2025, of course, it's been a year of tributes last season, and it's back to normal service as usual. Also heading out onto the circuit, Seba Malucelli, Alcy Feldman, Carlos Campos, and Alcy Feldman Nito, who, of course, last weekend, instead of getting himself back into Porsche Carrera Cup mode last weekend, like most of the drivers were, Alcy Feldman Nito actually flew to Spain to the Aragon circuit in Motorland, managed to compete the final round of the Euro Cup 3 Spanish Winter Championship. He's had a very interesting winter as Alcy Feldman Nito, and the teenager acquitted himself very well. So Ruman Zimkiewicz, Marco Billi, Miguel Mariotti, Salman, Nelson Marcondes, Nelson Monteiro, Gustavo Janon, Christian Marcos Regadas, Rodrigo Melo, Linu Perez, Yosemar Junior, Seba Lucelli, Alcy Feldman, Carlos Campos, Nito, and Francisco Horta, all trying to go for the pole position in the sport category. It is the most populous of the classes in 2025 across both Porsche Carrera Cup and Porsche Challenge. The Carrera Sport category has so many drivers competing in it this year, a grand total of 16 in the one class alone. So getting a victory in Carrera Sport in 2025 is real achievement this season. Normally we're used to seeing around 10 or 11 drivers, but this year we've got 8 in rookie. We've got 6 to 7 permanent drivers in the Carrera Cup itself. Still no sign of Ryan Masciarello, who is registered for the season, but he has had to miss the opening 2 weekends of the championship here in Velocitta due to work commitments. Hopefully he'll be back for round 3. Certainly a really good start to the weekend, as we saw just a few short moments ago in rookie. Now it's time to see which of the 17 competitors trying to get into pole position is going to emulate Miguel Mariotti from a fortnight ago. Not that Miguel Mariotti's pole position converted into a race victory on either of the first 2 races of the season. So you really do get the sense that drivers are going to be pushing to the ragged edge in Carrera Sport in 2025. It was competitive last year. It's even more so this season. So the drivers, as you can see, pushing into the first corner. Ruman Zimkiewicz doing what the drivers all do in qualifying, which is push across the pit on straight. You're allowed to do that, but you know that's coming. Lin put it down into the braking zone for the chicane, where Everton Cardoso tumbled over. You can still see a few markings from where the car actually landed to. But Linu Perez is definitely a man to watch out for in this one. He managed to take a fantastic race victory in the first of the encounters last time out. Lini Perez will certainly be hoping to continue his championship attack. Didn't have much luck in the second race, but he certainly showcased what he can do over the course of this season. And as we've said many times before in this sport, it's not about what you win, it's about what you do when you don't. It's so important in Brazilian motorsport. It's from one race to the next, never mind one weekend to the next. You just don't know what's going to occur. So many drivers ended up with punctures at the various points during the race. There is the 24, the car belonging to Gustavo Janon in the scarlet red colours. Definitely a car you're going to be keeping an eye on over the course of this season. You won't be able to miss it. Through the S's at the far side of the circuit. It carries so much commitment through those corners to get the most out of it. There's Alcy Feldman in the Tag Heuer Porsche number 1. Still having a really tidy time of things as he gets that car up to speed. There was a lot of potential from him last time out. And I get the feeling that there's unfinished business here at Velocitta. Only visiting 4 venues over the course of this season, don't forget. 2 in Brazil and 2 in Portugal, because we're going to be racing at Estoril and the Autódromo Algarve over the course of the season, as well as, of course, at the home of Brazilian motorsport for Formula 1, Interlagos, which has been hosting the Brazilian Grand Prix or the Sao Paulo Grand Prix in Formula 1 racing since 1990. And that is a fairly impressive record. So Alcy Feldman skipping over the curbs, just trying to make sure he can keep it all together. Dancing with the white line on the inside line. He's just trying to balance the car, trying to get the most out of each of these sections. As Miguel Mariotti has gone quicker than Flavio Champao, so now we're going to start to see the sport times get in amongst the rookies. Here comes Alcy Feldman, expect him to be a challenger for position, never mind in the class, but overall as well. If he finds something very comfortable, Seba Malucelli does a 1:29.26 to go fastest of all. So an excellent job from Seba Malucelli so far. Really woken up and paid attention as the Travelex 100% car was top spot for the time being. And that pushes Flavio Champao out of competition for the top 10. Mind you, there's still several drivers in sport to get up themselves up to speed. Marco Billy goes top, 1:28.643. That's a full 0.6 of a second quicker than Malucelli's time. Mariotti is only a few tenths here, 0.3 of a second off the top spot for the moment. So Marco Billy goes overall top. Mariotti second now. Malucelli, Campos, Guedes, and Modestoni. And that's pushed Paulo Souza and Vanya Pontes out of the top 10 running, as well as Flavio Champao. And now it looks as though Marco Pisani's about to be edged out there as Israel Salmen goes quick. So does Nelson Monteiro. Alcy Feldman looks like he's on a fairly committed lap time here. 26.2 for the first sector. Looking very neat and tidy at the moment. 24.8 for the second. That's right up there in the top 5. So if he can finish off the lap and tidy it up, it's definitely on the ride to it as Marco Pisani gets knocked out of the top 10. He can hang his helmet up for the time being now. Marco Billy still the time to beat a 1:28.643, but they start looking like a very competitive lap time from Alcy Feldman. He's tidy on the exit as well. What can Alcy Feldman do? Does he go top spot? He does. 1:28.635, just 8 thousandths of a second quicker. Marley. So a good run from Alcy Feldman. That puts him through to the top 10 for the moment. And I'm sorry to say that it's knocked out Leonardo Sanchez. He's now in the running. But his son has gone even quicker. Alcy Feldmanito, the number 95, has gone quicker still, a 1:28.421. So again, the son rivalry in the class is continuing to take a turn. And this time it's Alcy Feldmanito who's gone top spot. Miguel Mariotti across the line. And he splits father and son to go second. Quicker than daddy, slower than the son. As there's Lini Perez, the treble 8. Currently only 18th. He hasn't really pulled out the best of his performance so far in this one. He's got a little bit of traffic to contend with. He's got to be careful that he actually gets a lap in that's going to put him into the top 10 for the time being. Otherwise, he's going to have a miserable time in the opening couple of laps of race 1. Just trying to make progress up through the field. Felipe Perez still just trying to tidy things up on the exit. So Alcy Feldman, teenager, doing a great job to go pole position for the time being ahead of Miguel Mariotti and his father Alcy Feldman. And then Marco Billy, Israel Salman, Carlos Campos and Nelson Marcondes. All of the rookies have now been pushed to the top 10. So no Bruno Campos, no Edu Guedes and no Sergio Modestoni as Lini Perez only goes 17th. So Lini Perez is in real trouble here. 2.5 minutes to go It does look like he's not going to get. Alsu Feldman goes quicker still. So Alsu Feldman has gone top spot for the time being, and Linu Perez is really having to lean on it through the traffic, have any chance of getting into the top 10. This is a disaster potentially for Linu Perez. Winner in race 1, round 1 at Velocitta. 2 weeks later, it might not even make it through to the top 10 in sport, never mind overall. Currently, it's Alsu Feldman Senior ahead of Alsu Feldman, then Miguel Mariotti, Malucelli, Marco Billy is P5 of Yosemore, then Israel Sam, Carlos Campos, Nelson Marcondes, and Christian Moore. Somebody going way off on the climb up the crest. Going to see, and there is Alsu Feldman. The first time we've actually seen him. That's not the racetrack, Lightning McQueen. He was very much trying to turn right to go left approach there nearly. Certainly kicking up an awful lot of dust, Piston Cup style. As the 100, Seba Malucelli currently running in 5th place. They're comfortable to go through to the top 10 for the moment. It is going to be a bit of a close run thing. Remember that even though we've only got a few drivers in Carrera Cup this year, they've still got to make it through to the top 10. They've still got to put a decent lap time under their belt. And Alsu Feldman is quicker than his son, Alsu Feldman Nito, by 82 thousandths of a second. Here is Seba Malucelli. What can he do? Can he go quicker than Gustavo Zanon and Miguel Mariotti? Malucelli across the line. It's not an improvement. 5th place remains his. There is the Rusty's car. The number 95 of Alsu Feldman Nito. Can he go 80 thousandths of a second quick and displace this on the top spot? Pushes the car out of the front. Is Alsu Feldman Nito going to go quicker than his father? The answer is not at the moment. 1:33.803. It's not quicker than what he has been able to achieve so far, but he's going into what is a final push. That running wide is not going to improve his time. So Alsu Feldman Nito trying to go quicker than his dad, and his dad has just put in a 1:28.254. There is the 21 back end trying to slide for the Grand 7 car of Miguel Mariotti. So Miguel Mariotti, who won last year's Sprint Challenge title, stepped up to Carrera Cup for this year. Alsu Feldman has backed the chase here. I don't think this is quite the full chat. Quickest in the first sector, 26.117. But he did a 26.6, and now he's done a 29.6 in the second sector, so he's backed right out of it. As too has Linu Perez, and Linu Perez only 14th. Linu Perez not going to make it through to the top 10 of sport. Never mind overall. Disaster for Linu Perez. Just didn't get a lap time together there. And this year, Alsu Feldman Nito is going to have to concede defeat to his father. Sector 1, he did a 28.2. Sector 2, he did a 26.9, which is pretty quick. But it's not going to be enough to put a better lap time in. So for the moment, at least, it's father ahead of son. But this is what happened 2 weeks ago in the class battle for pole position. Dad went quicker than son. And in the top 10 shootout, which they both made it through to, it was Junior who went quicker than Senior. So the final completion of the lap then from the 83, that is Marco Billy. Just wants to try and push his way a little bit further forward because he's got Mariotti, Zanon, Malucelli and Regadas only a few hundredths of a second quicker than him. So if he can go just that little bit quicker as the checkered flag falls, can he move his way up? He tried his best, but Marco Billy's last time was a 1:29.7. He couldn't make him there. So Alsu Feldman, quickest Carrera sports drivers, ahead of his son, Alsu Feldman Nito, just 82 seconds slower than Miguel Mariotti in 3rd, from Gustavo Zanon, Malucelli, Marcos Regadas, Marco Billy, Yosemar Jr., and then Israel Salin in front of Carlos Campos. Interestingly, only one driver in the sport category could not go quicker than the rookies, and that was Francisco Horta, who really seemed to struggle in qualifying there, never really got a decent lap time together, nor did Linu Perez and Ruben Zimkovic, who are 15th and 16th respectively. Linu Perez lost another position in the very closing stages there. But so far, it is an all Feldman front row. 1 and 2 for father and son. Excellent stuff for Alsu Feldman ahead of his son, Alsu Feldman Nito. Good to see them racing together again after Alsu Feldman Nito had his run in Euro Cup 3 in the Spanish Winter Championship finale this week at Aragon. Again to continue his Porsche Carrera Cup campaign with his father. And they run together in 1st and 2nd. Hopefully there's more single-seater opportunities for Alsu Feldman Nito this year. Certainly did a very good job to put himself in the frame. So now for Alcy Feldman, ahead of his son, father and son. They must be loving this season, running first and second as often as they possibly can. It must be so special as a family unit for them to be running first and second. Hard to choose between the two. Alcy Feldman obviously running the green Tag Heuer colours. Alcy Feldman Nito, the teenager in the pack, running in the car livery that probably inspired him as a youngster. Don't forget the car's original movie came out back in 2006, which is around about the time that a younger Alcy Feldman would have been thinking about Alcy Feldman Nito. So there is Israel Salman, the man who was the rookie category in last year's campaign, stepping up to sport for 2025. And it's great to see the on-fly Bitcoin car doing a fair job. It was 9th in that session, so he's currently in the top 10. Whether he'll stay in the top 10 is not only quite unlikely, but also yet to be seen, as Alcy Feldman Nito really found the limits of that car, pushing on a pace. The drivers venture out onto the circuit then in Carrera Cup, and the final battle in the Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil qualifying session here at Velocitta for round 2 of the championship begins in earnest. As we see Marcel Müller, Christian Hahn, Antonella Bassani, Matthias Camparato, and Lucas Salas get themselves out onto the circuit from the pit lane. And so they will get themselves up to speed and try and knock out as many of the drivers in the top 10 as possible. Paludo, of course, the most successful driver in Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil history, is also going to be an interesting one for, as he will return to the circuit. So there's only 4 spaces in the top 10 available for sport drivers. Alcy Feldman Nito, Miguel Mariotti, and Gustavo Janon have guaranteed a place in the top 10. For everyone from Seba Malucelli downwards, it's currently not confirmed, because there's obviously going to be a real push from the Carrera Cup drivers, 6 of them in the 2025 campaign. And there's the man who's the reigning champion, Marcel Müller, looking to go for title number 2. Having been champion 19 and 2024, he would dearly love to win back-to-back titles. You don't get that too often in the world of Porsche Carrera Cup. Christian Hahn is out there on the course. So too is Thiago Vivacqua. Great to see Thiago Vivacqua getting out onto the circuit, having had a difficult start to his season. Good to see him returning to Carrera Cup for this weekend, having to sit out the first round of the championship. But now Thiago Müller, Hahn, Bassani, Camparato, Salas, and Ludo, which means there's only 3 seats guaranteed then in the top 10 for the sport, and that is Alcy Feldman, his son, Alcy Feldman Nito, Miguel Mariotti. So for Gustavo Zanon downwards, it is very much a bit of a lottery now as to whether they stay or whether they go, as the clash once penned. But it's now time to see who is really going to get the benefit of this. Miguel Paludo was so strong 2 weeks ago, clearly coming into this 2025 season, knowing that he was standing on the verge of history in terms of race wins. He now has more than anybody else in the Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil. There is the one. That is Matthias Camparato, the youngest man in the field, the only true rookie in Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil in 2025. And what performance he has given in his first point of call in 2025. Considering at this time he's really been competitive in a G kind. This is very impressive indeed from Matthias Camparato, and definitely signs that this is a lad to watch for many a year to come in many different forms of racing. Versatility and diversity. A racing driver, they can jump into a GT, they can jump into a Le Mans prototype, they can jump into a single-seater and be quick in everything. So there is Thiago Vivacqua, getting up to speed here at Velocitta. Great to see the man returning for 2025 as he joins the other 6 drivers in the Carrera Cup in the main category for 2025. Marcel Müller, Christian Hahn, Matthias Camparato, Lucas Salas, Miguel Paludo, and Antonella Bassani, the teenager 2023 Sprint Challenge champion at the age of just 17. The skies overlooking Velocitta. Such a beautiful skyline here when it's sunny. It was a little bit more difficult to predict because it was so wet, so miserable on the circuit last time out. We were very lucky we got any racing under our belts at all, to be perfectly frank. But certainly race 2, a very different story to race 1 a fortnight ago. This man, though, Marcel Muller, banked solid points in the championship. Got a pole position out of it all, of course. Did a fantastic job to put himself into that pole position. But it was Miguel Paludo who then went forward to take the race victory in fantastic fashion. And so Marcel Muller, in terms of the championship fight, is still with a lot of work to do, it has to be said, after having that big difficulty in the first race of the weekend. He, of course, had that big puncture that really ruined his chances over the course of the weekend. He only bagged 12 points the weekend of the championship because he obviously retired from race 1 while leading. It was looking good for him to dominate the first race of the championship. As we look at Antonella Bassani in her new Mobile 1 colours for the 2025 season. Last year she ran the Sam Sparrow livery, if you like, black and gold. And now she is doing a grand job in traditional Mobile 1 colours, having stepped up to Carrera Cup for the first time. 18 years of age, don't forget. And Antonella Bassani, still part of the Porsche Junior program of Brazil. Definitely an exciting talent for the future. I would love to see her continue to smash through her own targets and barriers and eventually represent Brazil and race for Porsche at the Le Mans. It's all genuinely doable. As up to the top spot, we're waiting to see the big guns from Carrera Cup really start to go for those big positions. Marcel Muller looking quick across the sectors, just starting to warm the tyres up. Antonella Bassani really starting to feel what that car can do. She already looks more confident behind the wheel here than she did 2 weeks ago on the same experience, getting the knowledge of what this car can do. Confidence is such a big thing in these cars. They're flat sixes. You really are dealing with a massive amount of power, a fairly incredible amount of torque as well. And everything has just got to come together and flow. These cars are not designed to flow. You've got to try and extract the most out of them whenever the opportunity arises. So Alcy Feldman ahead of Alcy Feldman-Nito at the moment. But of course, we've got 7 drivers in the Carrera Cup, all trying to find pace. Bassani, 26.5 for the first sector, 24.8 for the second. So there's still a fair amount to come from the Carrera Cup drivers, but you do get the sense that it's not going to be long before that time of Alcy Feldman's is going to be taken away from him up at the top spot. Let's see what they can do then at the sharp end of the Carrera Cup category. Lucas Salas has done a 134.6. What about Antonella Bassani? 3rd overall. Nice and fast. Matthias Camperato goes quickest overall. 128.110 for the teenage superstar. So Matthias Camperato in his 2nd weekend of the championship is already provisional pole position. But of course, they're fighting just to get into at the moment. Top 10 cars will be the ones that will battle for pole position. There is Miguel Paludo, the legend of the sport. Did a fantastic job to win race 1 and become the most successful driver in history of Porsche Carrera Cup Brazil for race victories. If he gets the pole position here, then he will become the most successful driver in qualifying in Porsche Carrera Cup Brazil. So Paludo just trying to find that little bit of extra pace. We can't celebrate at the end of this session, of course. This is all just to try himself into the top 10 shootout. Paludo, you could see using a lot of grass for the inside line there, really just trying to hammer home what he's got with this car. And let's see where he goes on the timing sheets. Is it fastest moment? It's not. He's only a whisker behind Lucas Salas, who's only set a reasonable benchmark time. He's not really put himself up the charge end. Not even in the top 10 yet. There's a little bit more pace to come, though, of course. But Antonella Bassani has decided to go ugly early, as they say, and push for the fast lap times. Not wait, just getting on with the job. Can Bassani go quickest? She 1:27.8, and then beaten by Matthias Camperato, who is hunting. Camperato goes top again after Bassani. 1:27.8 for Bassani, 1:26.70 Camperato. Great trade of laps these two. They're certainly going to be rivals in terms of speed this year. But Camperato, new Carrera Cup, and the Bassani, very much experienced in this category now, albeit in the sprint challenge for the last 2 years. Here's Marcel Muller. Now he's looking like he's on a proper hot lap. Fastest of all in Sector 1, fastest of all in Sector 2. Is this going to be a second consecutive pole position in a row for Muller? We'll have to wait to the top 10 shootout to find out. But this is just to put Marcel Muller in the hunt for that. He comes out of the final turn, over the line. Is it going to be enough for the top spot? It is indeed. 1:27.2, nearly half a second quicker than Camperato and Bassani. Lucas Salas in P4 as well. So the top 4, all now part of the Carrera Cup. It's always felt that this class should really be known as the Carrera Pro, but I think that would be slightly derogatory towards the category drivers in sport and rookie, so I know why they choose not to. Now Miguel Paludo's turn. Just getting into the top 10 is all you need to do here, Mick. You don't your best lap. You just need to pull out something that will get you through to that top 10. Also, so too does this man, Thiago Vivacqua. Sorry, no, this is the 70. My apologies. Lucas Salas with the British Racing green and the Dayglow orange stripes. Lucas Salas definitely looking fairly comfortable at the moment. He's quicker than Paludo, not as quick as Vivacqua, who has gone 4th quickest, just off Antonello Bassani's time. Christian Hahn, by the way, has gone 9th. He could do with finding a little bit more. Christian Hahn has not quite found the pace he wanted to find here. So through the battle continues on. Thiago Vivacqua is going to come across the line as well. Get another time on the board. As Lucas Salas doesn't make a massive improvement. Miguel Paludo seems to have backed off, done enough to get through. I would probably agree with him there. 6th position is good enough. Bassani's coming to the pits to finish up as well. Christian Hahn has made it in with 9th place. Once you've got into the top, you don't really need to find another lap time. You may as well save your best. The top 10. As well, just bring it in and finish off the job. All you want to do is get through to that top 10, and all 7 of the drivers in Carrera Cup Brasil as Antonello Bassani straight onto the timing screen. What did I do in Sector 1? What did I do in Sector 2? What did I do in Sector 3? Where can I find the gains? She's such a consummate professional, is Antonello Bassani. Such a great talent. And she's only just getting started, really, on her motorsport. Imagine what she could do 2 decades as a GT driver representing Porsche on the world. Marcel Muller, very comfortable, fastest in the session. 1:7.269. Half a second quicker than Matthias Camperato, with Arnie in 3rd. Thiago Salas with Paludo and Christian Hahn only just getting basics in, managing to bookend the Alsu Feldman factory. And then 10th position, the only other driver to make it through, Miguel Mariotti. So a very good performance then, as the contenders are looking for a solid run. But it's going to be a really exciting battle. The contenders will continue to make a very good use of it on the far side of the course. We're just waiting for the final section of the day. That's the top 10 shootout in Carrera. So all 7 of the Carrera Cup cars then have made it through to the shootout. Just 3 of the drivers in sport have made it through. That's Alsu Feldman and his Nito. You're looking at Alsu Feldman on your screen at the moment. And then the 3rd and final driver in that mix is Miguel Mariotti, 10th overall. So it's just the top 10 cars that managed to make it through. There is Alsu Feldman Nito in the fantastic Lightning McQueen racing colours, made famous by the Disney Pixar Cars trilogy. Lined up alongside his father, who is in the much more adult and much more mature Tag Heuer colour scheme. But I do love Alsu Feldman Nito's youthful appearance in the championship. It's great to see him back in his Lightning McQueen colours. He had to go a little bit more single-seater pro last week at the season finale of the Euro Cup 3 Spanish Winter Championship when he raced in the final round of that single-seater championship. There is Christian Hahn, just kept himself nice and quiet in the Cup running there just to get himself into the top 10. They're not really going to make the final push for pole position until make that final push. So it's this final session that will give us the pole position sitter. All going very well indeed. Elsie Feldman getting himself ready for the run. And very grateful for the opportunity, having gone fastest of all in the sport category. So now let's see what will happen in the final shootout then for pole position in the Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil. Don't forget, we've got the Sprint Challenge qualifying set of this as well. So the hunt for pole position is going to be very interesting indeed. So the drivers just getting themselves up ready. One final push for pole position. Last course, it was the pole position for Marcel Muller. And he's certainly put himself in the frame as the favourite to get it done a second race weekend in a row. And it's a very different task now for him. Christian Hahn, of course, leading the championship at this point. 5 points ahead of Matthias Camperato. Miguel Peludo just to find the play catch-up in the championship is Marcel Muller. 12 points in the first round of the championship, and that was in race 2. Shows you the retirement in race 1 is, because it really in your weekend, especially Marcel Muller was actually in the lead when that puncture occurred. He wasn't going to have the puncture though, of course. So Thiago Vivac was another one who was battling up at the sharp end of the field. He did, however, manage to score more points over the course of the weekend than Marcel Muller. But that was a race weekend that had pretty much woven into it over the course of the 2 races. 26 of the 32 drivers in the fray managed to come away with championship points. So there are still 6 drivers in Porsche Carrera Cup to score points in 2025. Great chances in the 2 races for all 6 of them to potentially score points this time. So then make their way to the end of the pits to battle for pole position. Marcel Muller, Matthias Camperato, Antonello Bassani, Thiago Vivacqua, Lucas Salas, Miguel Peludo, Christian Hahn, Alci Feldman Nito, and Miguel Mariotti. Only one of those 10 can be pole position for the second round of the championship. And there's a huge debate at the moment as to who is going to get the job done. So the drivers will venture their way out onto the circuit for the second round of the 2025 Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil here on the Autódromo Velocitta. A great start to the season. Don't forget, this is a championship that will see many great rounds over the course of the year. We're at Interlagos on the final weekend of April, 3 weeks from now. Then a 2-month wait before the first visit of the season to Portimao in Portugal. And then a week later, we'll have the first of our 3 endurance races for the season on the Portimao circuit. First to the Autódromo Algarve since 2012, I do believe. So it's a long, long wait since they have been competing on that particular circuit. In August, we'll have a trophy weekend at Interlagos. We're not going to be broadcasting for that. We'll for the final weekend of August for the sprint races, and then just 2 days after that we'll have the endurance race at Estoril, so you'll get 3 days of race action in 1 week. How spoiled are you? And then we'll have the sprint weekend at Interlagos on the first weekend of November. That is obviously sharing the race support bill with the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. And the very last endurance race of the season, the 22nd of November, will finish our season in earnest. What a fantastic year it is going to be. So the 10 drivers venture out onto the circuit for the second and final top 10 shootout at Velocitta this season. Marcel Muller, Miguel Bassani, Alci Feldman Nito, Miguel Peludo, Matthias Camperato, Christian Hahn, Lucas Salas, and Thiago Vivacqua, all battling for pole position now. So at the moment, the drivers are just trying to position, trying to warm up the tyres and brakes. The favourite for pole position here has got to be Marcel Muller. He is just so good at switching the car on for that one push lap you need to really get the most out of the car. But that doesn't mean he's going to be the man to get the job done. He's got so many drivers around him that have the potential. Christian Hahn can turn on a good lap when it's needed. So too can Miguel Peludo. Don't forget, he is 1 pole position away from being the most successfully decorated qualifier in Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil history. So there is a very good chance there, of course, for him to get the job done. He scored his 40th career victory last time out, but he's only on the run to go for his pole position. That's because, of course, in a championship where you've got two race one qualifying session, you're only ever going to get half positions as you are race victories percentage. So Miguel Paludo going for pole position number 20. Interestingly enough, Marcel Muller, who is definitely a favourite for this one, is going for pole position number 12 in his career. And there is young Alcy Feldman-Nito. Expect him to be challenging for 8th, 9th or 10th in the top 10 shootout here. As one of the 3 drivers in the sports category, he would just like to put one over on his dad, if he's brutally honest with himself. His dad was quicker than him in the shoot of the top 10, but last time out, that's exactly how it played out as well. And Alcy Feldman-Nito was able to go quicker to get into a better position than his father in the race itself. This is going to be a fascinating duel between 2025, isn't it? We're going to have such fun watching these two swap positions. But it's such an emotive country for motorsport is Brazil. You've only got to look at the Barrichello family when Rubens comes and plays in Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil. Loves his motor racing down to his bone marrow. And the blessing that he gets from being able to share it with the members of his family, it goes real to the core of your heartstrings here in Brazil. And it's no different for Alcy Feldman and Alcy Feldman-Nito. This picturesque circuit, Velocitta, which really does test a driver's resolve and certainly makes you really calculate tough on strategy, where you're going to push and where you're going to get the most out of the car and most out of yourself. Top 10 shootout has begun. We're already 4 minutes into it. Alcy Feldman has set a benchmark time of 1:37.002. That's nowhere near the kind of lap time we're going to get. Expect a 1:31 pole position. Sort of. We might even go quicker than that, to be fair, depending on what sort of tyre warm-up Marcel Muller's been able to create, how much space he's given himself in the traffic. But now it is the pole position. Christian Hahn, there he is, the championship leader. 5 points ahead of Matheus Camperato. 6 points ahead of Miguel Paludo. What can he do to get himself into pole position? Because Salas looks pretty hungry as well. 1:36.6. That puts him top for the moment, but there's still more to get from the car. Alcy Feldman getting himself dialed in. His first benchmark time, 0.3 of a second away from the pace of Lucas Salas, but there's so much more speed to come from all 10 of these competitors. They're still in warm-up mode at the moment. So let's see what will happen as they work their way through. Coming up to 10 a.m. local here in Velocitta. As the drivers are going to find that little bit of extra momentum. Alcy Feldman goes across the top spot for the moment on a 1:31.46. There's going to be a lot more speed to come. As up to second goes Antonella Bassani. Her warm-up lap is a 1:35.7. Alcy Feldman-Nito does 1:34.2. Here's Miguel Mariotti, last year's Sprint Challenge champion, accompanied, of course, by last year's Sprint Challenge vice champion, Antonella Bassani, who's also in Carrera Cup, as Mariotti goes top for the moment, 1:29.0. He's the first one to really blink and go for it. Runs very deep through the first hairpin, but somehow manages to keep the car on the curbs rather than kick himself out to the grass. So Mariotti can be very happy. That was threading the eye of the needle and getting it done absolutely perfectly to keep the car's grip and also keep momentum. Look at the twitch under braking, though, from Mariotti. That's when the car really starts to travel on the brakes. Mariotti still top on a 1:29.0. Alcy Feldman Senior goes quicker than son, 1:31.45 for Alcy Feldman on warm-up lap. But let's see what he can do now. He's really pushing it. 26.5 for sector 1, 24.8 for sector 2. So this is going to be a fairly quick time for Alcy Feldman, but I'm not sure he's quite going to be on the same sort of pace as Miguel Mariotti just yet. He could be a few tenths of a second away from him, depending on what they get up to in this third sector. So Alcy Feldman leans on it. That's a perfectly legal final exit from the turn. What can he do? It's 1:28.7. Great run from Alcy Feldman. So he goes quicker than Mariotti. Here's Antonella Bassani. Is she about to go pole position for the time being? She does indeed. 1:28.354. Good work from the 18-year-old, as Alcy Feldman-Nito can only do a 1:28.76. So the teenagers are on the front row of the grid for the moment, but we are still waiting for the big gun. Mariotti goes top again. 127.92 for Miguel Mariotti. Bassani, very impressive. But here comes Marcel Muller. Pole position, a fortnight to go. What kind of a lap? Expect this to be a low 127 if Marcel Muller's got any say in it. Over the line comes Marcel Muller, and it is going to be a 127.21. What about Paludo behind him? 128.2. A full second slower than Marcel Muller for the moment. Is there any more to come from Miguel Paludo? Well, Lucas Salas has just done a 129.30. But it is so tight from second position down to 8th place. There's less than a second covering those 7 cars. As we watch Thiago Vivacqua trying to extract more from the car. There's Ossie Feldman, who is slower than his son for the second weekend in a row in the top 10 shootout, unless he can find a little bit more. But Marcel Muller is on a 127.21. Christian Hahn, by the way, has gone second, a 127.90. So fractionally quicker than Miguel Mariotti. Thiago Vivacqua now 4th ahead of Paludo, Camperato, Bassani, and Alcy Feldman Sr., who does go quicker than Alcy Feldman. Nito. Then Lucas Salas and Pierre. Antoni, can she go quicker than P7? She does, 3rd. Antonella Bassani, 127.919, just 0.02 of a second quicker than Mariotti. And Alcy Feldman Nito goes 5th, 128.153. Good work from Alcy Feldman Nito. As up to 2nd comes Miguel Mariotti, displaces Christian Hahn, displaces Antonella Bassani with a 127.575. But surely, with this kind of pace, Marcel Muller is not going to be beaten for pole position. They've still got to find another 0.3 of a second to even have a whisker of the pole. Marcel Muller across the line. 126.994. Surely that puts it to bed for Marcel Muller to take his 12th career pole position in Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil. Phenomenal qualifying in 2025 so far, and the team knows it. Nobody's going to get a whisker near that lap. Just stunning from Marcel Muller. He is the man on form in 2025 qualifying. But here comes Alcy Feldman Sr. Let's see what he can do. He's currently 10th, 128.389. Can he go quicker than Camperato? Quicker than Thiago Vivacqua? Matthias Camperato has looked a little bit more like a rookie this time. Only 9th quickest. Just off the pace of Alcy Feldman Nito. Antonella Bassani slips back to P7, by the way. What can Alcy Feldman Sr. do? It's no change. 128.3 is the time that remains because he's the 128.5. Into the pits comes Miguel Mariotti. Very impressive from him. 3rd position from leader in the sport category, but 3rd overall. Half a second off Marcel Muller. I would be satisfied with that if I was Miguel Mariotti. Very impressive run. As Alcy Feldman looks like he's still on it. He wants to try and go for it one more time. And here's Miguel Paludo searching for pole position number 20. Paludo's done a 25.9 in the first sector, a 24.62 in the second. So this piece from Miguel Paludo. Can he go on the front row of the green flag? And Paludo is 4th, 127.69. So it's not as quick as it was before. Thiago Vivacqua's come up to 2nd place, though. Great work from Thiago Vivacqua, 127.386. Quicker than Mariotti, quicker than Paludo, quicker than Christian Hahn. And now with the checkered flag out, Marcel Muller and the crew know that he's not going to be beaten to pole position, that's for sure. But what about Antonella Bassani? Bassani has just done a 26.6 for the first sector, 29.0 for the second. Yeah, she's backed out of it, so no faster lap from Antonella Bassani. 7th will do for her, but not a bad run indeed for her first couple of weekends in qualifying for the Carrera Cup. Her second weekend, so much more impressive than weekend one. They had all sorts of difficulties and technical problems. Not this weekend. Antonella Bassani finally able to shine and puts herself in 7th grid for race 1 later this afternoon. It's much more like it for Antonella Bassani. But Marcel Muller, still the man in charge in qualifying in Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil. 12 career pole positions now. Slowly closing in on Miguel Paludo's tally of 19. Who knows? Maybe Miguel Paludo may not get the record after all. It might be this man who gets there first. I think he'll have to wait till 2026 to do it. But the form that Marcel Muller is in, he's actually looking likely to get just as close to the pole position record as Miguel Paludo currently is. Certainly in terms of the form book that they're currently running to, Marcel Muller is pretty unbeatable at the moment. Pole position in round 1, pole position in round 2. Excellent work for the 544 crew. And Marcel Müller, the reigning champion, has come into this season with so many positives. He didn't score a massive amount of points in Brazil last time, 2 weeks ago, but he was leading the race when he got that puncture. Marcel continue this incredible work at the second round of the championship. Is this where his championship attack really begins? 2 pole positions in a row. Marcel Müller was leading 2 weeks ago when that puncture hit. Can he keep that up? Miguel Mariotti will be ecstatic with 3rd position on the grid. He's got every justification to be just a whisker slower than Thiago Vivacqua, but ahead of Paludo, Hahn, Salas, Bassani, Alcifer Manito and Matis Camperato, with Alcifer Senior and Francisco Horta listed in 11th position, I do believe. That's an error on the timing screen, as Francisco Horta was at the very back of the sport category. And the man, of course, who gets the pole position in the rookie class, Bros, 2nd weekend in a row. Good from Miguel Mariotti. He gets the pole position once again in the sport category. And it turns out that it's exactly the same 3 drivers that get the pole position this weekend as did 2 weeks ago. Last time out, the pole position went to Marcel Müller, Miguel Mariotti and Bruno Campos. And a fortnight later, it's the same 3 men at the front of their classes. But it was a much tougher battle to get to pole position this time for all 3 of them. They had a lot more competition from drivers that were a lot better prepared than they were for the opening round of the championship. Obviously, having that first weekend on this circuit in these cars has definitely helped them to get their confidence up. But there you are, pole position in Carrera, Marcel Müller in Carrera Sport. It's Miguel Mariotti, who's also 3rd overall, by the way. And in Carrera Rookie, it's Bruno Campos. The same 3 men as we saw 2 weeks ago. So now we're going to hit the reset button once again. We finished with the qualifying preliminaries for Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil. Now we're going to do it all again for the Porsche Sprint Challenge of Brazil. 3 more categories, trying to get themselves in the top 10 as always. Sprint Challenge Rookie, Sprint Challenge Sport, and then it will be the Sprint Challenge main category. And whoever is in the top 10 will go through to the pole position shootout. Now, last time out, the 3 drivers to get to pole position were Leonardo Herrmann, Lucas Locatelli, and Claudio Reina. So I'll be intrigued to see if those 3 can continue working their way further forward. It's going to be a fascinating continuation of the championship for them. But certainly the way it has continued to progress for the drivers in Sprint Challenge, we've had all sorts of competitors up at the sharp end. Sprint Challenge this season, we'll see some incredible talents over the course of the year. Jose Moronito, Eversogo Campos, Fernando Oruda, Daniel Newman, and Claudio Chimiao. And there is the pole position trophy handed to Marcel Müller for the 12th time in his career. Absolutely spectacular form for Marcel Müller. He'll get himself ready to go off pole position for the first race of the weekend a little later this afternoon. Really excited what he can do from there. He'll put right the wrongs of the puncture that took away his victory last time out. There's still so much that can be done. But we're going to find out exactly how it's going to work out for Marcel Müller a little later on this afternoon when we've got the first race of the weekend. There's to confirm your pole position sitters across the 3 categories. Marcel Müller in Carrera, Miguel Mariotti in Sport, and Bruno Campos in Rookie. Exactly the same 3 drivers that we saw a fortnight ago on exactly the same circuit. Not that they had it any easier to go for pole position this time. Mariotti really stepping up his game. Not only does he get pole position in the class, it's good enough for 3rd overall. Nobody's going to be doubting Miguel Mariotti's credentials for 2025. Stepping up from his performance in the Sprint Challenge, he won the championship last year ahead of Antonella Bassani, who also stepped up into the Carrera Cup category, but she's in the Carrera class rather than the Sport class. And there's a very happy Bruno Campos. Pole position for him, having done a sensational job to get himself into that position. So it's the same 3 drivers we got in the top end of the times last time out. I wonder if it's going to be the same 3 drivers who get it done again in the Porsche Sprint Challenge this time. If we get pole positions from Leonardo Herrmann, along with the 2 men that got it done last time, Lucas Locatelli in Sport and Claudio Reina in Rookie, it will be yet another identical rookie, identical end, I should say, across the 3 pole positions, across the 3 classes. The joy in the 544 crew, the Fabian Petrus team, once they knew their man was never going to be toppled, once he got into the 126s, pole position was guaranteed. No one was going to get close to that for Marcel Muller. If he can carry that into race 1, none of the other drivers will see which way he went. The 12th career pole position for the Fabian Petrus, number 544, Marcel Muller. The man to beat and the man who everyone will be wanting to beat in race 1. We do know he is easy to defeat if things go wrong. Got a puncture in the first round of the championship. He got 12 points in the championship, so for the next couple of rounds at least, he's going to be playing catch-up with his fellow colleagues out there. Christian Hahn, championship leader, on 50 points, while this time Marcel Muller only has 12, having retired from race 1 and then managing to go from the back of the grid to charge his way through to score 12 points. Drove very beautifully indeed to do that, of course. It's worth keeping an eye on that. He went from 29th on the grid to P8 in the second race of the weekend. And also set the fastest lap at 1:26.12. But he's going to be basically catch up with the rest of the field in terms of points tally after retiring from the first race of the weekend. Sprint Challenge qualifying right around the corner. But once again, it's Muller, Mariotti, and the rookie driver Bruno Campos who topped the times here at Velocitta for the second weekend in a row. Time then to focus on the second run of qualifying as we do it all again for Porsche Sprint Challenge. These are the drivers who are on the second tier of the world of Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil. If you're going to make the comparison to the Formula 1 weekend, Porsche Carrera Cup is Formula 1 racing, Porsche Sprint Challenge is Formula 2. So the drivers who are having to step up into that particular category in years to come. Their race runs directly after the Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil race. And when I say directly after, I really do mean it. Drivers line up on the starting grid and you get a grid walk in Porsche Carrera Cup. Then they have their formation lap. Then the race happens. The podium is finished. And then as soon as the final podium, drivers head out onto the circuit in the Sprint Challenge, straight into their formation lap. There's no waiting around. They go straight in, ready for the action. The only reason we had a little bit of a gap last time between the two is because there was a change in the weather conditions, which allowed the drivers in Sprint Challenge to make the switch over to slick tyres for safety reasons rather than to remain on wets when the track was drying rather rapidly. Hopefully this weekend is going to go much better in terms of schedule, because once the rain started to fall on Sunday, we were all scratching our heads as to what we're going to do, essentially. When are we going to race? When is the race going to be finished? And how are we going to get to that point? Hopefully, 2 weeks later, the weather's going to be a little bit more predictable and we can run to the timetable that is scheduled. Just keeping an eye on Mick Mariotti. A dark horse for the victory later this afternoon? I don't think that's a ridiculous statement. Third position, despite a little trip off onto the grass. For the man who was the quickest of the Carrera Sport drivers. And he'll go on the second row of the grid. If he gets a reasonable start and follows in pursuit of Marcel Muller, anything's possible. And that would be quite spectacular for the reigning champion in the Sprint Challenge to take on reigning champion in Carrera Cup within the first couple of weekends of the season. Now the drivers in Sprint Challenge are getting ready. Daniel Newman will be the first one to lead them out onto the circuit. And he looks pretty motivated, I have to say, after a very solid opening campaign in the first weekend of the championship that saw him take the victory in the Challenge Rookie class in the second race of the weekend, after it was done in fantastic fashion in the first race by Daniel Newman as well. So after getting both rookie race victories, he's certainly the championship favourite going into the second weekend of the season. All they'll want to do is just continue his journey. The odds forever in his favour. There is Daniel Newman getting ready to go out to the circuit. As the drivers are just hoping that the session runs without too many difficulties. Cecilia Rebello is, of course, going to be part of this particular group. We've already seen Antonella Bassani in Porsche Carrera Cup. Now her good friend and single-seat convert, Cecilia Rebello, who joined her and their mutual friend, the Red Bull X Games skateboarder in the Olympic Games, Letizia Buffoni, who was also a racing driver. I was watching her this week in the simulator, actually spending more time in the simulator than she spent on her skateboard recently. So fair play to Letizia Buffoni, really taking the 2025 campaign very seriously indeed this year. And so the drivers head out onto the circuit. Daniel Newman, Claudio Reina, William Arroyo, Rafael Bernardes, Claudio Chimiao, and incredibly, Everton Cardoso, after his monstrous accident 2 weeks ago, he is back out onto a different Porsche, I should point out. He's not in the same car that rolled 2 weeks ago. I think that's fair to say that that car will never see the light of day again. William Arroyo is the man who's currently following in the wheel track of Claudio Reina out on the circuit. And then, of course, we've also got Ricardo Zilberman and Rafa Brocchi, who joined the ranks of the Challenge Rookies in 2025. So the challenge, once again, is going to be that fight for pole positions. Cecilia Rebello just letting everybody go out first, waiting for his ultimate opportunity. A nice family moment before Cecilia Rebello heads out onto the course. The family there just making sure everything is okay. We head out onto the course. It's a real family atmosphere in this particular category. So Cecilia Rebello getting herself ready to venture forth and try and put a decent lap time on the board. So I believe in the sport category. Fernando Oruda has also ventured out onto the circuit in this particular category. So with Sprint Challenge about to continue and get under started orders. All very good so far for the contenders at the sharp end of the field. Cecilia Rebello is indeed going to be in the sports category, so we won't see her out on the circuit just yet. We're going to get the first group of drivers done before that. Just 9 of them: Daniel Newman, Claudio Reina, William Arroyo, Rafael Bernardes, Everton Cardoso, Claudio Chimiao, Zilberman, Rafa Brocchi, Fernando Oruda. So with all of the drivers now getting themselves up to speed once again, it's going to be a case of, is anybody going to beat Daniel Newman in the rookie category this weekend? That is a very tall order, it has to be said. At the moment, I would suspect that we're not going to get an awful lot of news flashes from them on this particular occasion. I think it's going to be a fairly similar performance. Claudio Reina in the 99 car, that very garish purple colour scheme that he has. So now we're going to get to see exactly who's got the pace as they warm up the tyres and brakes to the operating temperature. You can see already that William Arroyo is trying to get the final sector polished up and neat and tidy to finish up the first bank lap. So expect those first competitive lap times to start to show. Daniel Newman, incidentally, has opened the account with a 1:35, just in front of Reina and Arroyo. But everybody is going to start to go quicker fairly soon indeed. The X99 car there, that's the number 2 of Rafa Brocchi. So Rafa Brocchi is hoping for a much better weekend than we saw last time out. It was fairly short-lived for Rafa Brocchi, as he said. Didn't really get to show his full potential, particularly in the rain. It all went wrong for him in race 2. as the track was drying out. It was just not conditions that were very suited to him. So this time round, he's got a chance to redeem himself, and he's looking pretty good across the practice sessions. Certainly making much better progress, and that's all you can do really when you're a rookie in this category. Just improve those sector times, keep finding more within yourself. 1:39.0 to open the gambit for Rafa Brocchi. He can go quicker than that, but we're still trying to find our feet and find those pure lap times at the moment. So I would suspect there's still a little bit more pace to find in the car. I wouldn't get too worried or hectic about where we're going to find that speed just yet. So the cars are starting to dial in. There is the 100 car. That's the one that belongs to Rafael Bernardes. Seba Maricelli, of course, runs the same number in Carrera Cup. The young fans of Porsche Carrera Cup watching from hospitality, keeping an eye on Rafael Bernardes as he gets himself up to speed. Some incredible camera work here. It just really is a wonder to behold just how amazing and advanced this championship gets. The highlights of last year. And the camera team here really do need a raise. Stunning as the Brazilian countryside is at the best of times, these guys really do nail it when it comes to race coverage. Newman currently on the top spot with a 5:28, my apologies. Claudio Reyna in front of William Araujo. We're going to get to see a replay of. Well, that's a little bit more than the racetrack that's been found. Not easy to get the car turned in through these apexes for Rafael Bernardes. Now, interestingly, there has been a couple of penalties handed out. In fact, it's for 3 separate drivers. Claudio Shimao, Ricardo Zilberman, and the 36 of Heverton Cardoso, all getting penalties there. And I think it's crossing the white line as they came out of the pit lane, I believe. We'll check that. But certainly, all 3 drivers picking up a penalty for the same offence. So they get their fastest lap time basically deleted from the session as a result of that. That's the penalty that they will incur. Very unfortunate for all 3 drivers then. Here's the confirmation then. So all 3 drivers picking up a penalty, unfortunately, from the race director. That means their best lap times will be removed. That is one of them, Heverton Cardoso, in a completely different race car. They managed to make it look like last time's race car, though. So fair play to them all for working hard to make it look like Heverton Cardoso's permanent ride. No major shunts to him in qualifying this time, I hope. To go, struggling to get the car turned in at turn 1, slowing the car down, very important. But whatever Heverton Cardoso does, his fastest lap time is going to be deleted. So he needs to find 2 laps then, within about 1,000th of a second of each other, to really decimate the effects of getting that penalty. Daniel Newman, heavy braking down at the drop. In through the left, the right, and then back onto the left, where the corner opened out into a bit more of a faster flowing spin. And he's off the road and goes airborne. Goodness me. Easy to get things wrong for Daniel Newman. They are all still in the rookie category, don't forget. So they're going to make mistakes. And that was a fairly costly one for Daniel Newman. Although he currently has the rookie pole position, he's got to make sure he's got a car that's in suitable nick for the race this afternoon. And another big run wide. Well, that lap time is not going to be his quickest. We know that already. So Daniel Newman, that time is going to get deleted. Let's have a look at how it all came about for him. Down the drop, just got on the throttle a little early. Understeers clean off the road, straight onto the grass. He hits the sausage curb as he comes through. Good reaction time to get off the power and just let the car coast back to the apex as we watch Ricardo Zilberman in the Porsche. Daniel Newman currently has the top spot then on a 1:30.73 compared to Claudio Reyna on a 1:31.1, William Araujo on a 1:31.4, and Fernando Arruda on a 1:32.7. There is Claudio Reyna on your screen now. That rather wild purple and golden yellow of the car. The Latin 99 group car. 3 minutes to go in the session. And that is a car spun out. That's Rafa Brocchi. So Rafa Brocchi has found a little bit more than the racing line. So that could bring out a red flag for the session. It could certainly bring out yellow flags. But fair play to Rafa Brocchi. He manages to catch the car and bring it back to the race circuit before the need to stop the session. But he's going to rejoin in the path of another car. So somebody's going to lose their best time, although there were double wave yellows to cover that part of the course anyway. So I think they've got away with that one without too much of a drama. But what happened to Rafa Brocchi? How did he end up facing the wrong way on the drop down the carousel there? I'll have to keep an eye on it. Meanwhile, Claudio Reina, we're not going to get any major improvements from drivers on this. That we shouldn't, because if we do, of course, then that time's going to be deleted because they should have been stuck the yellow flags. Here's what happened. Rafa Brocchi, the back end overtakes the front. He stabs on the brake pedal as the front end basically stops traveling and the rear overtakes the front end. He managed to catch the car, though, before he hit anything, and I don't think there'll be any damage to Rafa Brocchi's car as a result of that. Maybe just a little bit more excessive wear on this set of tyres than he would have liked. But that was the best of a bad job there for Rafa Brocchi. Managed to get away with that one without too much difficulty. So Rafa Brocchi lives another day after a pirouette in his qualifying run in Sprint Challenge. So there's William Arroyo currently running in third position. 0.3 of a second off Claudio Reina. And another 0.3 of a second off the man on the top spot, which is, of course, Daniel Newman, who's looking for a second pole position in a row in the category. After his 2 victories in a row last time out here on the Velocitta circuit. So Daniel Newman setting off for a very interesting statistic to have 2 weekends within 2 weekends of each other and grab both pole positions and both race victories. Grab the 2 pole positions, and the 4 race victories, I should say, that are held across those 2 weekends. That's a tall order for Daniel Newman. He's clearly got his mind set firmly on that task. Out of the final turn. All for William Arroyo. Is it good enough to topple Dan Newman? He's currently 0.6 of a second back, and he has not improved. I think pretty much everybody is now going to find themselves in a bit of no man's land when it comes to making personal improvements. A big run off the road there. I think that was actually before Rafa Brocchi got to the corner. Someone else may have run wide before him there. So that's Claudio Reina, the car in front. Whether it was Claudio or not, I'm only guessing based on the fact that that was the car ahead of him in the recent kick up of the dust. But I'm sure we'll find out if and when it becomes relevant. 20 years of racing in Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil since the first season, all the way back in 2005. Time runs down to 0. And it's time now to see if anyone can beat Daniel Newman to the pole position. My money is on nobody at the moment. Claudio Reina second, ahead of Arroyo, Bernardes, Arruda, Cardoso, Brocchi, Zilberman, and Claudio Schipau. Checkered flag is out on the course. Are we going to see any changes of position? Certainly not for the man approaching us. A couple of other drivers scampering to the line in the hope that they can get a little bit more out of this car in closing stages. Arruda has gone up to 4th position with his final flying lap, so he's displaced Rafael Bernardes. Everybody else has pretty much decided, look, I don't think we're going to get any more out of this. So rookie pole position for the 2nd meeting in a row then for young Daniel Newman. And you can be very happy with that. Came out. Just simple, logical steps to try and get every lap nailed the way it needed to be. Everton Cardoso able to bring his car back in one piece and looking distinctly more Porsche-shaped than it was at the end of his qualifying 2 weeks ago. So very good news indeed for Everton Cardoso, who does not have another monumental accident as he did a fortnight ago. But Daniel Newman, pole position, 2nd weekend in a row. 2 weeks ago he had the pole. Now he's got the job done again. And that's all going to give Daniel Newman massive bounces of confidence heading into the next part of the weekend. And that'll be number 1 that he'll be facing up in pole position. That race, of course, coming directly after the battle for the Cup. As out of the car gets Daniel Newman. 2 positions out of 2 attempts in the rookie category. Certain that he's going to get this in the run for the top 10. Although, looking at the lap time, 130.7 that might be top 10 worthy, you know. There's a potential that might be enough. I wouldn't put all of your gear away just yet, Daniel. You may just have found a lap time there that's good enough for top 10. It's certainly good enough for rookie class pole. So he's very happy with that. But yeah, 1 minute 30.7 in sprint challenge. That's not impossible to get to the top 10. He might just be able to pull that off with that kind of time. You could see how hard he was pushing, managed to get the most out of it. But considering that the times are likely to be in the 129s for the top 10, there is a chance that Daniel Newman may have pulled off a good enough lap to keep himself in the top 10. So I would just get yourself ready for a nice cup of tea. Just a little bit longer if I was Dan Newman. Maybe a chance to get back in the car and try and get a decent position in the overall top 10 of the grid. The beauty of having the three different classes running against each other, Challenge, Sport and Rookie, means that obviously you're all in the same cars, but you're going to have a very interesting challenge of trying to keep them at the sharp end. Not easy. So far, so good for Daniel Newman. Pole position in round 1, pole position in round 2. But you could see just how hard he was pushing. These cars sometimes have a bit of a propensity to understeer. And certainly Daniel Newman learnt about that the hard way in his build-up to the lap that bagged him pole position in the Challenge Rookie category. But there is definitely more still on the horizon. The Challenge Sport drivers will be heading out onto the circuit very shortly indeed. And that is where Cecilia Rebelo is to in the fleet and continue the female contingency of this category. There they are out on the circuit. And there is the trouble for Markinson Marquez, joining the likes of Mario Anito, Matthias Roque, Luis Souza, Andrei Goczynski, George Filio, and there is Cecilia Rebelo in the pink and blue machine, making her way out onto the course. So let's see if the second round of the championship goes better for Cecilia Rebelo than the first round did. There was potential there for Cecilia, but it just never really turned into anything in the wake of the difficulties surrounding her. Lucas Locatelli has gone out onto the circuit as well. So just like in Rookie, that gives us 9 drivers to battle away for the Challenge Sport pole position. Mario Lara was the one that certainly had the pace last time, as too did Matthias. Luis Souza is not that far away from it either. It's still taking a little bit of time for Andrei Goczynski to get back into the flow of things, having returned to racing after a fairly sized hiatus. But now it's time to see what these competitive racers will be able to find it on the Autódromo Velocitta in the second weekend of the 2025 Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil Championship. Jake Sanson with you in the commentary box as ever. And it really is going to be an interesting fight for the pole position now, because this is where the lines between Sprint Challenge and Sprint Challenge Sport are very blurry in terms of one lap pace. You do often get the potential for a challenge driver to actually topple the establishment at the top flight. I mean, it's been a fairly competitive class so far this year. I would say ultimately only the Sport in Carrera Cup, that particular class, the same class as this one, it's in slightly different cars, but it's middle group where a lot of the drama seems to stem from. A lot of the great battles and duels on the circuit will come from the drivers in that sport category, because they're not quite at the level to go into the full campaign at the top end to win the overall championship. But there's still that little sense of, well, no, I don't need my training wheels anymore. I can pedal down the hill or pedal up the hill perfectly capably now, thank you. So the sport challenge competitors, always very exciting to watch in qualifying, as of course is the qualifying run for the Porsche Carrera Cup as well. Off the vinyl turning, a nice run down the main straight. Such a tough race circuit to get right. Everybody finds that they are obviously going to be pushing and stretching the limit of what you are used to doing to a certain limit. Who is going to get through? Last time we had some multiple sharp end. A lot of good names to keep an eye on. We obviously had Matthias Roque, Mario Dallara, Also had Lucas Locatelli mixing around in that part of the Grand Prix grid as well. 8 minutes to go as we watch the 32. The men's oil car currently being driven by Matheus Roque. As we then switch to go up the crest with the 45 of Jose Moronito. The fact that he left the pit lane first before anybody else has currently got the fastest time amongst the particular competitors. A bit of a twitch there as well for the treble 4 of Marcus and Marquez. This is the kind of opportunity he would relish at, because now he's got a chance to put a few more points on the board. He knows that obviously there's going to be the ridiculous fast pace of the drivers around him, but that doesn't mean that there isn't an opportunity to come knocking. Still just trying to find that little bit of an extra dig in on the apex. Really tricky circuit this to get right. Just carefully run the car out slightly wide. You'll get a slower initial apex, but then tires will bite after the acceleration. They'll turn you in. You can get back on the power. It really will fix everything for you. But the drivers are having to learn that at speed on the job, as up to 4th position overall now comes Jose Moronito. Up to 7th overall comes Mario De Lara. And up to 11th overall comes Marcus and Marquez. So the times are starting to tumble then in Challenge Sport, but they need to be a bit more aggressive than that. This driver might give us a chance to do so. Cecilia Rebelo, rather under the radar weekend last time out, but certainly showcased that if the opportunities for wins and podiums in the class comes, she's going to have to be included in everybody's potential favourites list. Final turn comes Cecilia Rebelo. And what is it going to be in terms of lap time pace? Can she move away forward? She does. The 4th position, just quicker than Jose Moronito. Fastest of the sport drivers at the moment. There is the 177. That is Lucas Locatelli, who hasn't really dialed in a quick lap yet, nor has Luis Souza. They're just in the process of doing so with about 6 minutes to go. Sometimes giving yourself that little bit of an allowance, that little bit of breathing space on the track, is just what the doctor ordered. And prove the point, Lucas Locatelli goes top. 1:30.512. Quicker than David Newman. Now, everybody else is going to have to watch their backs here, because some of the drivers are really struggling to find the grip. Of course, Daniel Newman certainly thinks he's done enough for a top 10 place overall, but there's quite a few drivers and battles out here who will be trying to change those stars. This is Cecilia Rebelo finding the grass on the exit. That doesn't slow her down. It's certainly going to compromise a little bit in the following left-hander. Rebelo continues to attack these curbs like she's been driving Porsches for 10 years. She absolutely knows what this car's behavior is going to give her and where she can find that little bit of extra pace. It looks so quick through that 3rd and final sector, where the driver just has the ability to lean in on that penultimate turn. So now we're waiting to see another shuffle of the deck. Locatelli is top from Daniel Newman, Jose Moronito, Claudio Reina, and Mario De Lara. Where is going to be the top spot now for Rebelo? 2nd, 1:30.564. Good work. So there is the 45 of Jose Moronito. Looking comfortable at the moment in the top 4. Currently running in 4th place, Jose Moronito. Honestly, if racing circuits went to heaven, this is definitely one of the candidates for the midweek appraisal. 4 minutes to go as over the line goes Marcus and Marquez, I think that is. No, sorry, it's the 177 of Lucas Locatelli, who remains on the top spot for the time being. And the car and driver combination that's only gone fractionally within that time is, of course, Antonella Bassani. And I do believe Antonella Bassani earlier on has still got a lot more good product stuff to come. Cecilia Rebelo, her female counterpart in the Sprint Challenge, doesn't quite have that natural gift, perhaps, that you could argue with Antonella Bassani, but certainly it's a calculated and smooth effort to putting strategies together to make it look like the car is on rails. Over the line, and Lucas Locatelli's lap is 1:30.160, but up into the 1st corner, and that's Matheus Roque, who's now managed to carve himself into the 5th position of the so far. Just a whisker over 3 minutes. everybody's still determined that there's one final spanner in the works. I should point out that even though it's quite intense with electrical equipment in my particular booth, you only get out of life what you put into it. You only put these things into motion when you manifest them to happen. Decent braking through for the 32 of Matthias Rogue. Not going to lose quite so much in terms of tyre life. Luc Souza is there in front of us, the 7th in category. Still running at about P16 overall. I know from experience, though, that when the family calling card comes in, it's very difficult to keep a straight face and a decent conscience and also experience the thrill at 10:10. 2 minutes and 10 on the clock. Anybody that's dialing in a quick lap, time to get your foot down. Might just be able off the shock of shocks. So there is the 7 getting into the hot lap. That is Luis Souza. Less than 2 minutes remain. So now it is just essentially a scamper back to the pits for the competitors that are not going to be able to improve. I would say at the moment that's definitely dead weight that you're not expecting to be needed very soon indeed. 1.5 minutes. I'm really excited to see this proposed extension at the circuit next door. There is the 7 coming back into the pits to finish up. That is Luis Souza. Knows he can't find any more in himself. Maybe the car has more, but he doesn't. The number 45, that is Jose Moronito, who has worked his way into 3rd position. So this could be really where he's going to end up. Is he bailed? He has indeed. So deciding that the lap time wasn't there, it's so easy to get it wrong on one corner in 0.4 of a second. And that, as we've already seen from the crib sheets here, the desperation between first and Cecilia Rebello. Trying to find that little bit more out of the car. Looks to be leaning on the curbs now. This is exactly what you need to be doing. 33 seconds together on the clock. It's looking pretty futile, if I'm honest. Up and over the top of the crest. And it's all systems completed for qualifying for those 2 categories in Challenge Rookie and Challenge Sport. Now we're going to have just the remaining challenge drivers. So who made it through for the time being? Well, it's Luc Locatelli in front of Cecilia Rebello, 2nd. Jose Moronito is 3rd. From David Newman, Matthias K. And then it is Claudio Reina in front of Mario Dallara. It is Martin Marquez and Fernando Arruda. All thick and fast now to shuffle the decks a little bit. The 77 continues on its way up the climb once more. As we watch on our screens, Mario Dallara. Very impressive last time out. Picked up his first win in the series on the 2nd race battle. So what are your first impressions on the circuit? What can our drivers... I was just going to say, what can our drivers expect in the lower categories? Well, you may expect a mistake or two to creep in, as the 77 of Mario Dallara is unable to keep up with the 177 of Luca Locatelli. Covers it off with a break and then bins in because he knows he's never going to start another lap time. Over the 2nd race weekend in a row, the man on pole position in the sport category. It was set to be Mario Dallara for a time, but I'm afraid to say that is absolutely not the same sort of case. For the 77, Mario Dallara, 7th overall, 2 points back from Matthias Roque, and another 2 minutes back from the there in the mix. There's 2 sessions to go. That's what happens when you overshoot at the chicanes at the top of the loyalty card bill. I tell you what, if the man who's had so much trouble in British television having to have those kind of problems, it all comes back again. Pole position confirmed now for Lucas Locatelli in front of Cecilia Rebello and Jose Moronito. Much bigger improvement for Cecilia Rebello. Very similar to what we saw from Antonella Bassani in Porsche Carrera Cup. To make that kind of progress is very important indeed. And that could be enough to Antonella Bassani's good friend, Cecilia Rebello. There she is. Could well make top 10 with that lap time. What was the lap time? It was a 1:30.664. Now that could be enough to put her into the top 10. We're going to have to double check it. I think she's made it through, and that's a really good effort from her second ever weekend in the category. Just 2 qualifying sessions left now against the clock. The last one, of course, being that one belonging to the main class competitors. So once those are completed and the drivers heading out, we're able to get one step closer to finding out who the best 10 drivers are to make the progress needed. All eyes focused. Great shots here to really see the emotion of the driver getting out of the cockpit. So all the drivers taking their time to relax and enjoy themselves and just hope that the understanding is very good. Right, that's a race director message. A penalty for the treble 4. That is Marcus Marquez. It's not going to do a massive amount because I think it was down the back of the queue anyway, but it just sets the precedent with drivers. They're not allowed to cross the line when they go out of the pits on exit. But we live and learn. That's the thing about our sport and our discipline. We live and learn. So just 2 sessions left then to determine who is going to be in pole position for this one. A favourite has got to be the man about to head out onto the circuit. And that particular challenge is going to be an interesting one to replicate with these drivers behind the wheel. But it must be feeling a very similar sort of anti-passenger stance. 32, the men's oil car. Love what they've done with that particular colour scheme. That's Matthias Roque, who finds himself in 5th position. And then there is the number 7. That is the car belonging to Luis Souza. So now we're just waiting for the last few cars of the Sprint Challenge Hall of Fame 2025. Is that the last few cars are starting to make their way to try and see how many of them, if not all of them, how many of them do you think you could squeeze your way into over the last couple of weekends? Well, certainly there's been a lot of discussion about the competitive nature of the sharp end of the field, because now we've got the 5 drivers as part of the Sprint Challenge category. Leonardo Herman, Caio Castron, Gerson Campos, Caio Chavez, and Sadak Leiter. Those are the 5 contenders, in the hope that this is the first of many weekends for them. It will live long in the memory, I'm sure. There is the 22. It's the car belonging to Caio Castro. Just trying to shake the car down for him a little bit to get him a little bit more general pace, I guess, is what we were really after from them. So now the creators are basically trying to encourage this new promotional activity. I wonder how much of that has been a tiny bit of distraction, a tiny bit of the AI effect on the contenders in Top Flight Motorsport. Back out onto the circuit again goes the Milan car. It is now Luis Souza, no longer behind the wheel. It is his stablemate who gets the job done. Back on the power, sliding the car around. Look how dirty it is offline. Honestly, if you get even one wheel off the course in the Tim Macro F3 special that's continuing the march. So 5 drivers in the top 10 positions are guaranteed. But if it stays like this, we're going to definitely have Locatelli. We're going to have Cecilia Rebello. Jose Mononito, Daniel Newman, and Roque. Eight minutes 45 on the clock. That gorgeous chrome livery of the number 23 of Lemon. The car's so spotless you could almost brush your teeth in the car's reflection. Certainly getting up to speed as he means to go on. On the power again comes Carlos Chavez. He was absolutely flawless in rookie last year. So it was only natural that a team was going to step him up and give him a proper attempt at it now in Taekwondo on that same street. Well, these battles continue to put forward. Leonardo Herman has already worked his way through to the tail ender of the Vegemites. Seven minutes 45 on the clock. Is there going to be a little bit more pace left in the car to find for Carlos Chavez? Certainly seems pretty adamant of finding his feet here. But anybody that was currently listed up to this point in 6th through 10th, you are very fortunate and very lucky drivers. You will be going to represent these competitions once again. Cristian Campos is at the top of the press. Makes the odd mistake from now and then, but on the whole, so far this season has already kick-started slightly better. 7 minutes 5. And then it is 7 minutes flat. Just double checking that there's still a fascinating battle out there on the course. So as the field watches and waits, with the temperature dropping a couple of degrees Celsius, that could make the circuit a tiny bit faster because the tyres are getting natural cooling as they come through. So now we wait to see if this is going to be a provisional pole lap for Geração Campos. So they can pretty quick as he comes across the line. Where does he get to over the line? It says he hasn't improved on my timing screen, so maybe that lap wasn't quick enough. Well, it is Leonardo Hiraman who's managed to get into the top 5. Steam God has gone with him. And of course, we've got the likes of you, Handy, racing personnel wanting to extract a little bit more out of you. So with less than 2 minutes to go, it's just a straight, flat out races this one. Keep the racing a little bit more entertained. Just over 5 minutes to go, and it's really going to take a miracle to turn the current thinking and fall back around. Singapore, a very tough nation full of competitive drivers, lapping the course in a very similar sort of style in Porsche Carrera Cup Asia to their Porsche Carrera Cup Brazil counterparts on circuits of very similar dimension. Lucas Locatelli still the quickest over Cecilia Rebello, with Leonardo Herman now going up to third quickest. So Herman clearly means business. There is the 54 of Carlos Chavez. Went from the rookie dominator straight in and bypassed the high category straight in for a nice relaxation. So just over 4 hours and 3/4 still to go in the session. But don't forget that the driver's position at the end of this session is also going to indicate the drivers heading out onto the course. Now, I wonder if there's a little bit of tactics at play here for the potential over then for the second great power lights. What future now really holds for a couple of these drivers who are finding themselves on the back foot after some early difficulties. But certainly the drivers remain. They get back to the car. They will tiptoe their way back into the pits all day. Let's see if there's a little bit more of a kick to this particular batch of Zodova. 3 minutes 40. As up to the top spot again comes Lucas Locatelli. Overall, top 4 manages to get the job done. Three minutes and 15 left on the clock. Lucas Locatelli has the ultimate time though, 1:30.042. Still not done yet. 3 minutes left in this group alone. It's only the top 10 that will make it through. So there's a handful of drivers that are especially promoted along with former Japanese F1 interest. 3 minutes to go. And Sadaglaita is still struggling to get the car turned in on oversteer. It looks like a really tricky view problem for Leonardo Herman to find a little bit more work to do than he did yesterday. So we're just waiting to see who the conclusion of this top 10 shootout is going to be, and then we'll have one final spin the wheel for rookie year trajectories. So there is number 22 of Carrera Castro running in the traditional Porsche liveries on many a race car from the 70s through to early 90s. So second position at the moment, that is the number 82 car. Last couple of minutes of this particular session. All they've got to do is get through the final 10, then they can really play the hunt for pole position in the final of our time groups. Just important at this stage about just keeping a clear head, just keeping it nice and tidy. But I don't really see anybody toppling that initial bank marker pace for the front runner, Lucas Locatelli. Now it's interesting, the next 4 drivers are all based out of Hong Kong. Race under the flag of Hong Kong as a nation. So who knows, this is going to be a fantastic end to the season. One minute to go in the session. Locatelli still unbeaten, 1:30.042 in front of Gerson Campos. Go Castro, Sadaglaita, and Edward Herm, ahead of Cecilio de Beno, and Go Chavez, then David Watson, and Valentin Bronf, Claudio Rican, Mario Abuz, then Fernando Afrenades, and Lutz Sweet Belanas. I don't think I'm not sure my upbringing really warranted a lot of sympathy for them. They certainly didn't give any of their own money to make this thing a reality. So now we're waiting for those final couple of seconds to complete. Once they got to about lap 3, lap 4, it was very clear that nobody was going to make any personal gains. But it's not about stressing the car at this stage of proceedings. It's about just keeping it nice and tidy and finishing the final battle of the session. To me, so it's going to be Locatelli, Campos, Castro, Lee, Juan, Tim Borbay, and then there's teachers in the rank. So the final session seconds tick down, and I don't think anyone's going to get close to the mark set by Lucas Locatelli, who's only 0.3 of a second quicker than the second place driver, that is Guillaume Castro. So Brian Kerse currently looking at second, Guy Castro in his third. So with the checkered flag coming to a conclusion for the main body of drivers in Sprint Challenge, now it's the top 10 that will fight it out for the victory for pole position. And the 10 that have made it, as Carlos Chavez decides to bring the car into the pits to bail out of the lap rather than complete it, is Gerson Campos, Caio Castro, Suttergleiter, Leo Herman, Cecilia Arbello, Gal Rodriguez, Jose Marinito, Daniel Coman, and in 10th position as well, he was there with Dusty and Dusty Fubs. So those drivers who have just finished their session cannot afford to get complacent or comfortable, because they're pretty much, certainly in GT racing terms, going straight in. A little bit of adjustments made here and there to the tyre warmers. So now it's just a case of finishing the job up. No major surprises there in that one. The drivers that have been competitive in last year's calendar with that team have been able to find their over the winter. So they did a good and steady job in the Sepang 12 hours. So now 10 remaining drivers in the field. That's Lucas Locatelli, Berson Campos, Caio Castro, Sola Kill, Leonardo Herman, Quaddy Davies, Jose Marinito, and David. Who's that position there just in behind? I want to say David Coulthard, is it? It's not, of course. Not even close to the right driver. Lucas Locatelli, though, fastest, remains quicker than the Carrera Cup contenders. Incredible that they were only a few hundredths apart. But Gerson Campos, Saio Castro, Suttergleiter, and Leonardo Herman, all rather baffled and taken away, I'm sure, from the way things currently stack up. As that particular car with its shiny chrome effect, I don't think any drivers actually made any much of an effort to see that invisible glass. One man you're definitely going to find irresistible to watch over the course of this weekend. The 82 of Gerson Campos, he's fighting for the championship this year. So expect to really find that little bit of extra magic. Suttergleiter in the roll-on Ferrari. And so we've obviously had our run through the individual stats now. So just one final session, timed of course, sets us the grid for the second of our F1 parties. Away for the top spot. So impressed, I have to say. So impressed in this particular day and age when there's so much about this, sort of a pendulum shift between drivers. I'm following you in this. I'm good at this, so I will make more opportunities arise from it. It doesn't always work as simply as that, but certainly in your fantastic weekend to be on the pole position back on the starting grid, they can hear it up perfectly. So now it's just time for one final shootout here on the Autódromo Velocitta, one of the most underrated circuits in the country. Always prepared to face the music on that final shootout. And so comes the final bid for pole position. We've still just about got a couple of hangers on in the overall top three. It's been a bit of a mixed up grid session, this one. Drivers either getting complacent and making mistakes. It's the team feeling, the crew that he's got with him, maybe feeling a little under pressure as well. But out onto the circuit we go. We've waited long enough. The challenge pole position is just mere minutes away. They don't get long to warm the tyres and brakes here. They've just got to get into the race, get the most back out of it. All should relatively flow naturally. And into the barriers, straight out of the pits, by the look of it. That's Cecilia Rebello. What has happened there to Cecilia Rebello? Straight out of the pits and hitting the wall. So what's happened to Cecilia Rebello? That is one of the most bizarre incidents I've seen for a while. Out of the pits, straight throttle, and bang! The car just spits out and hits the wall on the way out of pit lane. Never seen anything quite as dramatic as that in a qualifying session. So Porsche Bello, I think, is going to have to settle for 10th position here, just by virtue of the fact that the car has already picked up enough damage and is not really in fine fettle anymore. It's a big mistake by Cecilia. Barriers on the main straight. I mean, the car looks drivable, but it's certainly missing a section of the front wing from the front right of the car. Well, that is dramatic for Cecilia Abello. A chance to go pole position wiped out then on the way out of the pits. It's been a long time since I've seen a driver have any kind of error at any kind of point on the circuit. But the question is, what is this going to do to Cecilia Abello's chances in the race now? Because they're going to have to look at it. They're going to have to figure out, what can we do to finish the session at the very least? Because we're in session 3. Don't really think anybody here fancies that one of the top drivers to start from the back and be struggling to work the way further forward. Into the braking zone comes because Locatelli. Now, don't forget, Locatelli remained fastest even when the Sprint Challenge front runners came out onto the course. So that shows you the kind of level of pace Lucas Locatelli has been able to graft. So it will be fascinating to see how the drivers will come back with more, will get the opportunity to come back with more. That's the extent of the damage sustained by Cecilia Hubello, making her way out and hitting the Armco barrier. As Cecilia Hubello gets out of the car, I'm okay. I'm just annoyed because now I'm not going to get to show what I could have done. It's potentially an issue with the crisis in American racing, of course. Not so immediately different, you may ask, but there are quite a few crossovers, quite a few similarities. And so now it's that final push for pole position. Who will get the most from it? It's going to be a very tricky time for all those involved. Trying to picture the scene. None of that's been very much conjured up in the head for the time being. So let's see where else we're going to get this push position. There could be a couple of drivers really trying to find a little bit more. So now there's only 9 drivers that will make their way into the battle for time qualifying because Cecilia Rebello is going to have to be content with 10th position. Still, relative good stuff can come from that position on the inside. As long as she manages to follow in pursuit of the drivers without sustaining any damage, without any contact. If you can get down the Brabham straight without hitting anybody and then carry as much of that speed through the first quarter as possible, you are world class. This place has already done quite a lot to better the development of national homegrown motorsport. And we watched the 23, that's Leonardo Herrmann, in his all-crime machine, having raced in Deep Grill for a lot of the campaign in the off-season. Drivers are still going to take a little bit of time to gear up to it. But so far, so good for the pro drivers. It's perfectly suitable for Leonardo Herrmann to go top spot in front of Jose Moranito. And third glider, George Campos, in front of Korea, of course. And then the 2 drivers, or Motion Mopest and David Nozwana. Here's the 66, though, in the mix. That is Sadak Leiter. Out of the final hairpin, powering down on the brake pedal once again, just trying to find that little bit of it. And it's a great analogy, isn't it? 177. Putting on another good effort here. Just quicker as Quinton Storyline. So another opportunity. Just under 4 minutes left. Leonardo Herrmann's time is 1:30.426. That's a second quicker than Newman, a second quicker than Jose Morenito in third. So if you're going to start coming up with the goods in terms of the flamboyance of the situation, you're going to need to go a little bit quicker. As up to the top spot we know is Leonardo Herrmann, ahead of Locatelli, ahead of Newman, Mora, Waiter, Gerson Campos, Charles Davies, and Joe Aston, along with Matthias Roque was certainly out in the early session 2 weeks ago, and Nicholas White was also part of it. So interesting to see how it all plays out. But Cecilia Hermalo herself will have her grid spot left empty in her particular honest. Out of the final hairpin comes the 54th. That is good average 3. Just waiting to see if there's going to be any big jumps in the third sector. We've certainly got some coming now. Jose Morenito, has gone quickest in sector 3, quickest in sector 2 for Leonardo Herrmann, and of course Gerson Campos in the film has been recovered with these guys as the leading protagonist. 2.5 minutes, still pushing, still trying to find that little bit of extra in the car. So 2 minutes and 20 on the clock, plus the additional lap. So now we get to see in these final 2 minutes, has Jose Morenito got to find that little bit of extra in the car? Gerson Campos getting up to the top spot on a 1:29.875. Leonardo Herrmann on 1:30.07. So if you want pole position, you're going to have to crack 90 seconds for the lap. Lucas Locatelli third, Jose Morenito fourth, David Newman fifth. I asked when I talked about it, he kind of pulled the Jean-Claude Sarti magic trick, and that doesn't really matter afterwards to linger on and have a giggle at. Jose Morenito. They've just lapped Go Castro is what it is, I think. So far, so good. 1 minute 24 as they come across the line. Gerson Campos remains the top instigator, 1:24.875. Out through the twisties. And up towards the final part of the lap. What a save that was from Lucas Locatelli. Goodness me, any other racing driver worth their salt would have chucked that to the chicken house on the side of the road. Not Lucas Locatelli. Really beautifully commanded there as the back end started to travel. Got off the power, pretty much styled it out with that power slide. And straight back into it once again. He's only going to have one night for pole position, and it's this lap or never. And so he is choosing to be as fast as possible by the time he gets to the line. There is a lot of pressure riding on this particular pole position. And let's see if they're going to continue to make it work. Final few seconds of the session. Leonardo Herrmann still not able to keep tabs on Gerson Campos. There's that 0.196 deficit. So difficult to topple. The team running in third and fourth in the category. Lucas Locatelli and Anajo Morenito. Sina Castro currently P5 in front of David Newman. Carlos Chavez, Elson Gavil. It's a very tough mission now with the time having ticked down to 0. Gerson Campos with 1:29.875. The fastest of all in Leonardo Herrmann. Is Herrmann going to be able to hold on to a time? Sadek Leiter is currently down in 8th position. Can he shoot his way up the rankings with a decent final lap? It certainly doesn't look like that's the case. Over the line, though. Joy uncrushed by... I think that's a very simple run to the pole position. 1:77, Lucas Locatelli got the pole position overall prior to the sessions. If we'd have finished it there, he would have picked up the pole position. But it's Gerson Campos who reads the situation beautifully, perfectly. Here he comes out of the final turn. I'm not entirely sure how he responds to that. It's a very tricky circuit by its nature. 1:29.875 is the time to beat. He does not beat it, but he has got people that are beatable. The final turn gets the 32 car. Excellent effort from Chavez, who the contenders are very happy down in Geração Campos' camp. Ahead of Leonardo Hirschman in second place. Lucas Locatelli third from Jose Moranito. Garo Castro. Danny Newman still managed to round up with sixth when all he had was one rather frustrating dollop of cheesecake. Joe Antonelli, Sadek Leiter, and then the rookie drivers, Marcello Porza and guys, Cecilia Rebello obviously having to not quite get a lap time under her belt after veering off the road on the exit to the pit lane. Certainly the most dramatic incident of qualifying across both classes, I would say, both in Sprint Challenge and in Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil. So Geração Campos had the maturity and calm, nerve and steady hand to bring the car home for a famous pole position. He'll join Leonardo Herrmann on the front row of the starting grid. He'll be repeatedly waking up to tell the guys sitting directly behind us just to be quiet. It's going to be very tricky indeed for Lucas Locatelli and Jose Moranito to gain that first impression. Fifth place for Garo Castro. Sixth place is Daniel is going mad, apparently. And then we have Garo Chavez and Sadek Leiter finishing it off with ninth position going the way of the Motorsport Academy Young Guns. And the final session is the number 98, Cecilia Rebello, who did not set a lap time on the board. He'll be going from P10 to the grid. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen, for the qualifying session. We'll be back on air for a couple of hours for the first of our 2 pairs of races over the course of today and tomorrow. Race 1 from here on the Autódromo Velocitta is going to see another great run from Marcel Müller. He gets pole position in the Porsche Carrera Cup. Lucas Locatelli bags pole position in the sport category behind Geração Campos, who managed to get the overall pole position in the Porsche Sprint Challenge. And there's also a very solid run further back because in the rookie category, it was always going to be tall order to hang on to. But I do believe it was Claudio Reyna who managed to finish the job done on this particular occasion. Great work there for Geração Campos. Pole position in Sprint Challenge, keeping him very much happy and on the right side of positivity heading to the race this afternoon. 2 hours time, and these guys are going to be pushing it. But Geração Campos follows Marcel Müller to pole position for their respective categories. Race 1 later today is going to be very vibrant indeed, full of action and pace. So we're going to take a break, and in 2 hours time, we'll come back and give you the first race of the weekend, the second round of the 2025 Porsche Carrera Cup of Brazil from the Autódromo Velocitta. On behalf of myself, Jake Sanson, and behalf of my crew as well, Nicholas Sotelo, our esteemed producer, and I'm going to keep the man behind the scenes who makes us crunch the numbers and get it all done. We'll be back in 2 hours' time for the first race of the weekend, race 3 of 2025 for Porsche Carrera Cup and Porsche Sprint Challenge of Brazil. Bye for now.